All right, welcome to the Wolverine Recruiting Show. I'm Clayton Sayfie with EJ Holland. We're going to get into a number of topics, including Michigan receiving a decommitment from Markus Allen, wide receiver out of Clayton, Ohio. We're going to preview Tyler Martin's decision, 2022 linebacker. We're going to get into Tavier Dunlap, running back target in 2021. Once again, we touched on him earlier in the week on the Wolverine TV, so you can catch that video if you subscribe to the Wolverine on YouTube. And then we're going to get into safety target Daymond David a little bit at the end. But first of all, EJ, what's up? How's it going, man?
Nah, it's been quite the week.
Yeah, so let's start with that. Markus Allen, we're recording this Wednesday. Markus Allen, Wednesday afternoon with a decommitment and kind of caught you off guard. I think a lot of people off guard because you were at his game just several days ago, right? And so you talked to him. You didn't get any indications of that. He's been kind of having some cryptic tweets though in the last couple days, but recruits and guys are on Twitter and they do their thing here and there. So you can't really read too much into it until something like this happens. What exactly went down here with Markus Allen, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, so even that like one cryptic tweet where it was like go where you're wanted, like
Right.
Ron Moore retweeted that. Like you could like interpret that as like him trying to recruit someone else to Michigan because he had been one of the more vocal leaders in the class. So it's hard to decipher, what recruits mean at certain times. And then, when I reached out to Rod Moore after Marcus Allen decommitted, he gave like the weirdest quote ever. He was like, "Me and Marcus are different people, and we'll leave it at that." And Rod Moore's still solid, so this won't affect him at all. But it's just a really strange situation. Obviously, I've been covering recruiting for a long time, and anytime I check in with program sources and there's a decommit or a pending decommit, they're usually on top of it, whether it's for damage control or because there's a grades issue or because they were processing for numbers, which happens on occasion. Like I said, usually there's, we're aware of this, let's tackle this. And it wasn't like that for Marcus Allen at all. It was so strange. Like you said, he had been one of the most solid commits in the class. And so I got no indication that he was processed or it was a grades issue or anything like that. I mean, at one point, Marcus was supposed to be an early enrollee. And honestly, if I have to think of something, and I'm sure more details will come to light here in the near future. I mean, we're talking about the decommitment 3 hours after it happened.
Yeah.
So I think more details will come as time goes on. But I mean, he had constant communication with the staff. Like you said, I went out to his game on Friday. I mean, gave great quotes, said he was still solid, never gave any impression that he was on the verge of decommitting. Gaddis was again in constant contact, so it's not like there was. I know some people are like, well, he wasn't feeling the love, and it was like, well, I mean, Gaddis was talking to him all the time, so I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I think we'll get more details as they come. The only thing I can think of, and again, this is speculation on my part, is just that it had to do something with the labrum injury.
Yeah.
Marcus suffered a torn labrum, and this was over the course of like 3 weeks. So 3 weeks ago, I went out to Ohio to see Marcus. The day before I went out to see him, he sent me a text and said, I won't be practicing because I'm enrolling early and I'm going to be ready to get to Michigan. I'm going to get surgery on the torn labrum. And then I show up and he's practicing. And then he said he talked to Gaddis about it and he decided that he's just going to play. And he's continued to play with it. And at times I thought, okay, well, he'll probably just practice. And then by the time games come around, he'll be like, all right, I'm going to make the business decision and get surgery. But he's continued to play. And I'm wondering if that maybe soured the relationship a little bit or something. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. I mean, he has a teammate committed. He's been solid. He's been a vocal leader. He has the relationships with guys on the team like Giles Jackson as well. I thought the receivers were all really good friends. Andrew Anthony, Xavier Worthy, and Marcus, I mean, were um, all guys that were, constantly communicating. Christian Dixon's kind of off on his own, but those three guys are constantly communicating, constantly on social media. Just and like I said, there was no type of like program source, anything like any damage control, any getting ahead of it, like nothing. It was just like he decided to go elsewhere. So it was really, really strange.
Yeah, definitely. And we were at Andrew Anthony's commitment ceremony, and we did a show, and we talked about how Michigan is basically done at recruiting wide receivers in 2021. That was with Markus Allen in the fold. That was after Andrew Anthony decided to commit to Michigan. But now there's that spot opening up. So a guy like Jaden Thomas, his name starts to pop up again. I know you talked to some sources today about what Michigan's going to do with that spot that was reserved for Markus Allen to be in this class. Again, they kind of had shut down some things with wide receiver recruiting. So what is next? For Michigan recruiting wide receivers in 2021.
Well, the good thing about Michigan is they never let things die. Even if they know they're going to lose a recruiting battle, they'll still keep in contact with that guy. And it makes my job a little frustrating because I still have to report that stuff. But sometimes it works out, like with Xavier Worthy, like they never let it die. And then all of a sudden he had some question marks with Oregon and he committed to Michigan. And there was other times where they fought to the very end, knowing they were probably going to lose, like with Kalen and Kobe King, and they lost that recruitment. But I think they are. You have to give them kudos for being so relentless like that, even when the odds are against them. And the other thing they do well is they keep in contact with guys that aren't necessarily top of the board guys or guys that there might not be room for. I mean, you've even seen it. There was a little bit of uncertainty with Tavier Dunlap, and now he could be a guy that's committed by the time you watch this show. So I think they did a good job of keeping in contact with Jaden Thomas. Again, he's a Rivals 250 wide receiver out of Atlanta. He was very high on the board before Andrew Anthony committed. Once that happened, Michigan pretty much was filled up with at wide receiver. I think Jaden Thomas understood the situation, and even last week, I had heard some buzz that Jaden wasn't really considering Michigan anymore. But now with this happening, I think Michigan will be back around the top of his list. He always liked Michigan's academics and the ability to play baseball at a very good baseball program, which Michigan offers. Jaden's never visited, so getting him on campus is a must. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what happens with the dead period. But the other good thing that's playing in favor for Michigan with Jaden Thomas is the fact that Jaden's completely comfortable waiting. I think the longer he waits it out, the more likely it is that Georgia won't push, which has been kind of hot and cold on him and is right in his backyard. And the more likely this could turn into a Notre Dame Michigan battle or something along those lines. Aside from Jaden Thomas, Michigan hasn't stopped working on Lorenzo Styles, who's been committed to Notre Dame for a while. There was a point earlier this offseason where Michigan had a really, really good chance at flipping him. I mean, there was a lot of buzz behind the scenes that he could flip. And then the pandemic hit, he didn't visit. And so that one just took kind of a turn for the worse in terms of Michigan. Notre Dame during that time did a really good job. Again, you have to compliment the Notre Dame staff for solidifying his verbal pledge during the pandemic. But if visits do open up, again, there's just so many unknowns this recruiting cycle, which makes things tough to gauge. But if visits do open up, then I could see Michigan getting Lorenzo Styles on campus. He's always been interested, and he has a really, really good friendship with JJ McCarthy, and they still communicate. So that one's something to watch. And the last one is Titus Mokia Atamala from Hawaii. Titus is on the safety board right now. He's been being recruited as a safety. Michigan has talked to him a bit about playing receiver. He is going to have the option to play both at Michigan. I think his preference is to play wide receiver. I actually like him a lot at wide receiver as well. I do think he honestly could play either. I got a chance to see Titus in 7-on-7 earlier this offseason, and he was really, really good. He definitely caught my attention. Problem is, he's all the way in Hawaii and hasn't been to Michigan. So I don't think there's a lot of optimism with Titus right now. But like Jaden, he's a guy that's comfortable waiting and waiting. So I think that plays in Michigan's favor again if visits open up. With all three of these guys, Michigan absolutely needs the dead period to come to an end.
So things are getting interesting with wide receiver recruiting. We will keep an eye on that as things move forward with Markus Allen's decommitment. Let's move into Tyler Martin, 2022 four-star linebacker, Rivals 250 guy, actually ranked just outside the top 100 at number 106 in the country in those brand new rankings out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. But he's set to make his decision here. This is coming out Friday, so Friday night in just a few hours. And this is a kid with, he just feels like a Michigan type of guy. And I know Michigan's the favorite here coming in to this decision. He's a former teammate of Zach Zinter, who's a freshman offensive lineman for the Wolverines. He's a good friend of 2021 tight end commit Louis Hansen. Don Brown, is from that area and just racks in, reels in the talent from the Boston area specifically, but anywhere in the Northeast there, he's got those deep-seated ties. And this is a good player. Michigan's looking at him at the will position, EJ. Your thoughts on Tyler Martin as a prospect? I know the decision coming down to the final hours here. You got Boston College in there, who seems to be in there with some of those other guys out of the Northeast with Michigan. But Tyler Martin, a couple hours away here from a decision.
Yeah, so starting off with just quickly hitting on his recruitment, I do think it'll be Michigan. I've had my future cast pick in for Michigan from the first day I got on the Michigan beat. He was actually the first recruit I put in a future cast pick for, like on my first day on the Wolverine. And just quickly to give you some background, before I even was on the Michigan beat, when I made the move from 24/7 to Rivals, I went out to the Rivals camp in New Jersey before I was even on the payroll. I just went out there on my own. And this guy came up to me and another Rivals reporter, and he was like, "Hey guys, can you show me the roster? I just want to know what number my son is." And the other Rivals reporter just kind of blew him off. And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'll show you my roster. Like, who's your son?" And he was like, "Tyler Martin." And I was like, "Oh, Tyler Martin." So I knew that was a kid I had to get familiar with based on the beat that I was moving over to. And so I just kept in contact with his dad and Tyler, and they're such a great family, and I've got to really know them over the last year. I saw Tyler in game. So I'll talk a little bit more about him as a prospect here. But even from that first day that I met them back last May, I could tell that Michigan was a school that they were very, very high on. Don Brown offered Tyler as an eighth grader, and they've been in consistent contact. They've recruited him extremely hard over the last several years. Jim Harbaugh has been in constant contact, has had a couple of FaceTime calls with him or whatever video platform they use. They've had a couple of video chats here in the last couple of months, and they've gone really well. Matty Dudek has been involved here recently as well. So I think that things are definitely trending the right way for Michigan. It would be a shock to me if he didn't land at Michigan. With that said, Tyler's been really impressed with Virginia. He went down there for a visit, and I know that staff has been recruiting him extremely hard. I actually exchanged messages with Martin's dad earlier this week, and he told me that Virginia was coming at Tyler extremely hard after he announced that he was going to make the commitment. Vanderbilt's a school that he's always really loved as well because of its high academic standing, and he's found the idea of playing in the SEC very intriguing. And then Boston College is right down the road, and they have a new staff, and they've made him a priority. So overall, I feel like those are the schools that are primarily in it. Nebraska to an extent, but I definitely feel great about Michigan's chances. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Tyler as a prospect. Will he outgrow the linebacker position? Will he spin down and play the anchor position or even a three technique? He came in at 249 pounds at the Under Armour camp in Delaware, which I was at, and it's definitely Tyler's always been a big kid, but that was way too heavy. And I think Tyler and his father realized that. They hired a nutritionist, and Tyler's already getting back down. He's already shed 10 pounds, and he's close to making his way back to 235. And John Brown has told the Martin family, if you guys commit to Michigan, we want you to come in around 235, and we'll strip you a little bit and add some good weight and get you playing at around 245, which isn't, Kalel Mullings, who was smaller than Tyler coming out of high school, is already at 243 after just a few months going through the Michigan strength and conditioning program. So I'm not as concerned as a lot of people. Could Tyler outgrow the linebacker position? Sure. But I think he's taking the proper steps forward to stay at the linebacker spot. And I think Don Brown knows how to evaluate the position. And you'd be hard pressed to find a guy that had a better in-game performance than Tyler Martin last year. And I think Tom Lemming said the same thing as me. He's just so impressive when you watch him on film and in game. I mean, he is an old school guy. He's a guy that would have thrived, way back 30 years ago. But even now, with the way Don Brown's defense is morphing and the way that will spot is morphing, I think Tyler is a good fit for that spot. And he's just a relentless, fierce hitter, a guy that comes downhill and wants to hurt you and will. He's mean, he's aggressive, he has that old school linebacker mentality. And I think that's why Don Brown and Jim Harbaugh have really valued him.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Tom Lemming, a longtime national recruiting analyst, and I talked to him for our roundtable that we put on the site the other day, and he was just raving about Don Brown in the Northeast. He said every single kid, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you, who's out in the Northeast quite a bit, and you will be again this weekend, but every single kid, who's talking to you, what teams have reached out to you? It's Michigan, Don Brown. So it's incredible the effort he puts in there. In the Northeast and really finds those under the radar type of prospects because it's not the best competition out there, but they're able to pluck those kids. So, I mean, it looks like Tyler Martin will be a Wolverine leaning that way, and we'll see what happens when he makes his official decision here. Next thing is Tavier Dunlap. Again, a three-star running back. This is back in the 2021 class here, Del Valle, Texas, in Austin. A kid that could pop at any moment as well. Somebody who could make his decision. Like you said earlier, it could have been, or could already have happened at this point, but Oklahoma State, the primary contender. What's the latest on Tavier Dunlap and his possible decision?
Yeah, we talked about it in our other show, so we won't get too in depth, but just to hit on it really quickly, everything I'm hearing the last, 24, 48 hours has been extremely consistent. I still feel like Michigan is the team to beat by a large margin. I think the Wolverines have taken full control of this recruitment. I know that Jay Harbaugh had another really good talk with Dunlap and his family this week. And I know Matty Dudek has also been involved as well as Jim Harbaugh. So I think the staff has kind of taken this one and ran with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if a decision comes fairly quickly. I feel like Michigan's ready to kind of shut this one down and get them to Ann Arbor.
And then the last thing would be 2021 safety target Daymond David out of Maryland. Michigan was trending for him. It looked like that Michigan was going to be close there, but now you're hearing that he's starting to trend away from Michigan possibly. And, Oregon's been a school that maybe distance was a factor for a while, but what are you hearing on that front? Maybe the Ducks are back in play for Daymond David?
Yeah, Daymond David's a really interesting one. There's so much conflicting information. So, you can only report what you know. And so, if it just doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. This is a time where recruitment start to get a little weird. We saw the big drama show that was Rocco Spindler, and then we saw the circus that was Drew Kendall. So recruitments get a little stressful to cover down the stretch around this time. And it's even worse this cycle with the pandemic and guys not being able to make visits and just having to commit on the fly. So on Tuesday, or on Monday, I got word, and I was feeling this way for a while. I thought Michigan had done a really good job of building up a relationship with Daymond David. Once Oklahoma dropped out of that race, it became apparent that Michigan was the clear leader. Then Oregon jumped in, and Oregon had been his dream school. So we knew that was going to be a factor. But the fact that Michigan had developed these relationships, when I went out to see David at a private workout in Baltimore, I also had a chance to talk to his mom, and she complimented the Michigan staff, talked about how, they felt really comfortable with Jim Harbaugh and Bob Shoop. I talked to a mentor of David's, and he mentioned how even 48 hours ago, David was talking about Michigan's NFL development, especially in the secondary. Bob Shoop's track record as a previous defensive coordinator, and the way he develops the safety position. So the arrow is just pointing to Michigan. And I had also heard that Oregon, there just wasn't as much familiarity because they were a recent offer, and it is so far away. I know, flying from Baltimore to Ann Arbor is still a flight, but it's a lot shorter of a flight than flying all the way to Eugene. So I do, based on everything I had gathered, I felt like Michigan was definitely the team to beat. I just got a text from Markus Allen. I felt like Michigan was the team to beat, but I don't know. I don't know what's changed the last 48 hours, if anything's changed the last 48 hours, because I did talk to a mentor in that recruitment who, as of Tuesday, said he still thought Michigan was in the lead. I talked to program sources, and they didn't feel anything different. Bob Shoop and Don Brown actually just had a great video chat with him. So just a weird one. He hasn't visited either school. That's something to note as well. He's never been to Michigan. He's never been to Oregon. It seems like he is in a rush to make a decision, which is interesting. It seems like more guys are starting to slow it down now. And I'm not exactly sure why. Even before he got the Oregon offer, he wanted to make a decision in September. So it looks like he's trying to commit in September. Some of that is because he is an early enrollee, so wherever he lands, he'll be a January guy. But this is one of those recruitments where you again report what you know, and trust that until it doesn't happen. I mean, recruiting is you're dealing with 17-year-old kids, so sometimes their minds change from one day to another. And David's never been a guy that's been tough to read necessarily. He's just been more of a quiet guy. I do still think, based on everything I heard, that it would be surprising if he picked Oregon. It wouldn't necessarily be surprising, like, oh, I'm going to be shocked and be completely unprepared for it. More surprising from the fact that Michigan put in a, now Zach Zinter's dad's calling me, so people interrupting the show. But yeah, no, I definitely think that it would be surprising, not so like, oh, I was wrong. It would be surprising, and man, Michigan put in a lot of work in that recruitment and was there for so long. And then Oregon just came in and swept them up in a matter of literally like 2 weeks. It would be such a weird, turn to it.
Well, like you said, it's been a weird month. There's been a crazy amount of things that have happened in the last about 30 days. So Michigan could get some momentum back with Tyler Martin if they get him Friday night. If they could possibly close with Tavier Dunlap here. That is our show for this week. EJ, look at that text and tell us if you have any intel you can give us from it.
You have to sign up to the Wolverine.com, use promo code Blue60. You can get 60 days for free. You can get premium access to the Fort message board, which has a great community, all our insider recruiting team, basketball recruiting information. Use promo code Blue60, get 60 days for free. We're just giving you kind of a taste, wanting to be more on your screens, telling you guys what we're about. So everything you get here, we're doing it out of kindness. But if you want to be kind and pay some money, then you can get all the insider access.
There you go. You get inside access to EJ's text messages, promo code Blue60 over at the Wolverine. We'll see you guys next time.